Hi, I'm Pastor Dave. Thanks for joining me for this week's video. You know, about 2 years ago, I had two different sources kind of give me a warning and a heads up. And they said, be careful and watch Venezuela. Now, I wasn't sure what they meant by that, but their warning was if we did not change the direction we were going, it did not change the things that we were doing, that we could follow down the same path as Venezuela. Now, since then, I've done a couple of radio shows and a couple of blogs on what's happening in Venezuela. The food shortage, it's crazy what it used to be as a country and what it is today. The New York Times just recently did an article, and they did a really good job on this article. They followed a few people around, and they told the story of a few families on what's happening over there. Now, to understand, they are fleeing Venezuela for their own lives because they're starving. They're literally starving in the nation, in the country of Venezuela. So they are fleeing by boat now, and basically what's happening is they're having smugglers that have old rickety fishing boats. I mean, these aren't speed boats, these aren't great boats, these are just old, fishing boats, and they're charging people up to $1,000 a head to get them off of Venezuela and get them to the Caribbean or some of the near coastal areas. And because of the patrols, the police and border patrol and the other nations, other countries, the smugglers don't want to get near land. So imagine, being put into a boat, being crowded into it, too many people in the boat, and sailing for a few hours, getting to the coast where you can just kind of see the land. It's at night, maybe daybreak is coming, and you can just barely see the land, and you're told to jump in the water. And hopefully you'll make it to the land that you see. Hopefully you'll make it to shore. And if you get caught by Border Patrol or by the authorities, then it's on you. You pay $1,000 for that. But why would people do that? Because of how severe the conditions are, the economic conditions in Venezuela. And we need to understand what's happening. The number of people who are leaving there is incredible. They have over 1,000 people in the last few months, they're saying, that just left there. They are. When the president, Chavez, when he decided to change the way things were happening in Venezuela, he decided that he wanted to change the economic standpoint. He wanted to break the backs of the elite, the financial elite in the country, and he wanted to do a wealth transfer, and he wanted the poorer people to have more wealth. Sound familiar? He wanted the 1% to pay more, and he wanted to distribute the wealth, and that caused the country to go into chaos. I mean, Venezuela used to be a very rich country because of oil production. Gas down there, if you lived there, gas was like 6 cents a gallon because it was subsidized by the country. And now people can't even get food. When you look at over 150,000 Venezuelans who have fled the country in the last year alone, that's more than the entire last decade combined. 150,000 citizens leaving the country. Hundreds of Venezuelans. They go to grocery stores and they stand in grocery stores. They stand in lines of grocery stores for hours just hoping that food would be delivered. No guarantee. The New York Times article had a picture of a woman in a grocery store with empty shelves, and she's trying to feed her family. One man said, it's better for me to say goodbye to my son at the airport than to say goodbye to him in the cemetery. Because if they stay in Venezuela, they will literally starve to death. And these people who have good jobs, these are good people. These are mothers and fathers and families. And they have good jobs. One 30-year-old man who was enlisted in the article, they was talking about him being an engineer. And he was, for a while, doing well in Venezuela. Now he went to Brazil, which is a place where a lot of Venezuelans are going. He went to Brazil, and he went from being an engineer in Venezuela to being a cashier at a grocery store, making $400 a month in Brazil. But at least he can eat and survive. And you have professionals, you have attorneys who are waiting tables and checking out people at stores. You have women who are, unfortunately, are turning to prostitution. You have people, Venezuelans, begging in the street for change. That hasn't happened before. This is areas they used to go on vacation. Now they're going there and just trying to survive and trying to just have enough food to feed their families. The IMF, the International Money Fund in Europe, came out and they said that the inflation rate in Venezuela this year was going to be 500%. Now, let's just think about that. If you went out and bought your milk and your eggs and your bread, whatever you paid for that, imagine it being, 5 times that. Now, they're saying, the IMF is saying that's this year. Next year, they anticipate the inflation rate in Venezuela to be 1,600%, 1,600%. That's just, how do you do that? There's a black market happening now in Venezuela for things like corn flour. Cornmeal is just it's a staple to the diet there, and you can't get it. People can't have that. That's why they're starving. So imagine the inflation coming in, and people are just having to flee for their lives, and they're doing it in a way that these smugglers are taking advantage of them. They're charging people $1,000 a head. Now, if you're in America, $1,000, maybe you don't have access to that. Maybe you do. But in a short period of time, you could probably find it or get it, especially if your life was on the line. Well, $1,000 to the average worker in Venezuela is 5 years' worth of income. Now, the median income in America is between $48,000 and $50,000. So let's say a smuggler would charge you $250,000 to get you out of America and to take you to an island and dump you off a quarter mile out in the water. Would you be able to come up with that kind of money? And that's what they're asking. So what people are doing in Venezuela is they're going to the smugglers and they're asking for loans. So will you smuggle me out of the country in your fishing boat, and I will pay you, but I need to borrow the money from you, and they're putting their houses up for collateral. So if you look in Venezuela, the streets are dotted with empty homes because they're being lost in foreclosure, they're being lost in debt, they're being lost to smugglers. That's the despair that's happening in Venezuela. I'm not sure many people understand what's happening in that nation today. And I go back to a couple years ago to where some sources who I trust warned me, saying, watch Venezuela, because if we don't make some changes, we're heading down that path. These boats that take people, sometimes they don't make it to shore. Sometimes they vanish at sea. But people still get in them because they're desperate. So living in America, we just have a warning. So the video this week is to kind of draw your attention to what's happening in that country. But let's say, we have an administration, a new administration coming in, which we hope will make some changes and take us down a different path. Because if we don't, the path we're heading down, going after the 1%, going after the elite, trying to break them so that everybody else can benefit, has failed miserably in Venezuela. Anyhow, that's the nugget for this week. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it gave you some things to think about and check into it, do some research, because it's a tragic situation. And just, by the grace of God, we're in America and not in Venezuela. Have a great week. God bless you.